the second pasuk in our parsha. Ve'lavash hakohen midoy vad umichnesei vad yilbash al besaro ve'Terumas Hadeshen asher toichal ha'esh es ha'oila al hamizbeach v'samoy etel hamizbeach. The Kohen shall don his fitted linen tunic. He shall don linen breeches on his flesh, and he shall separate the ash of what the fire consumed of the carbon ola on the altar and place it next to the mizbeach. We really have here a look into the Kohen's morning routine. His alarm goes off, the coffee pot goes off, he has his coffee, he puts on his big day kahuna, he washes his hands and feet in the kiyar, and his first job of the day, the Terumas Hadeshen, the lifting up and removing of a whole handful of ash of the previous day's carbon. This is a real avoda, a real service in and of itself. The Kohen putting the bow on the previous day's carbon. The Kohen, who must be a Kohen kosher, a completely priestly Kohen, donning his Kohanic clothes, must begin his day by removing or finishing off the preceding day. Now, he takes those ashes and deliberately puts them to be left next to the mizbeach, v'samo etel hamizbeach. And the Gemara there, Masechtas Yuma, also Masechtas Temura on Lamed Daled Amud Aleph, tells us that just like the komets of the carbon mincha was an askara, was a remembrance to be lifnei Hashem, before Hashem, of the carbonos done, so too, this komets, this handful, this pile of ash, the Terumas Hadeshen, was laid down as a remembrance of the devotion that the Jewish people did the service of Hashem the previous day. And Hirsch points out something that tells us how we should approach our avodas Hashem each day. And I only stumbled upon this beautiful insight by listening to the great Rabbi Yaakov Volba Shlita. And the idea is that Hirsch reminds us that all avodas Hashem is built on the previous day's work, is built on our grandparents' avodah. The symbolism is that the Kohen's first step in his avodah is to take a little bit from the day before. The symbolism here is jumping off the page. See, Klal Yisrael carries with it the same mission since day one. Since Avram Avinu discovered HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have all been following in his path, passing down our morals, ethics, and traditions from one family, from one generation to the next. That even the very last Jewish grandchild who stands there as Mashiach comes is only and merits to build on what Avram Avinu did. Every day that we wake up, it's not a new avoda. We are trying to follow that clarion call of the Rambam to be a light unto the nations. The same way Moshe did it, the same way Avram Avinu did it, the same way the Chavetz Chaim did it. Shoveling or grabbing a scoop of ash from the day before is step one. And in one sentence, he says, the Terumas Hadeshen tells us that the Jewish today must take from the hand of yesterday. And all of this about the Terumas Hadeshen and how the Kohen began his day leads us into the very next pasuk in the parsha, which teaches us something just as, if not more, practical and important. Upashat is begadav, velavash begadam acherim, Hotza'as Hadeshen al michutz lamachane el makom tahar. After the Kohen woke up, had his coffee, did his Terumas Hadeshen, now he shall remove his garments and don other garments. Rashi tells us they were of lesser holiness. And he shall remove the ash to the outside of the camp to a pure place. An entirely different avoda, the next step in his service, called clearing of the previous day's ash and the hearth buildup, getting rid of all the previous day's remains. It seems like it wasn't done every day, but sparingly from when the previous days and carbonos had accumulated, that it needed to be cleaned. So the Kohen would go and get every last bit of ash, remove it, and put it outside the camp at a holy spot. And Hirsch further continues in this glorious piece of his that while building on the past is important, reveling in the successes and our accomplishments can be the death of future accomplishments. While yes, we are continuing Avram Avinu's legacy, and yes, we are building on the previous generation, after a successful day, as the new day begins, one has to or must, or we are shown here, one should wake up, clear out the previous accomplishments, Hotza'as Hadeshen, removing the previous day's carbon, and now begin anew with an effervescent, fresh approach to the day, as if all that had been done in the previous day was now put to bed, and now it's a brand new, fresh start. Listen to these words describing this idea from Rav Hirsch in a way that really very few can. Fresh, as if nothing had yet been accomplished, does the beginning of every new day call us to go to our mission with a full new devotion and sacrifice, and nothing that has been done may lessen the energy with which we go to our duty. The thought of what has already been accomplished can be the death of that which is still to be accomplished. Woe unto him who with smug self-complacency thinks he can rest on his laurels, on what he has already achieved, and who does not meet the task of every fresh day with full, fresh devotion, as if it were the very first day of his life's work. The Hotza'as Hadeshen, Rabbi say. We then remove our previous accomplishments. I remember seeing one of my great rabbeim, great teachers, after he had finished a significant portion of Talmud Bavli, made a grand siyum, a big party, a celebration on behalf of the accomplishment. It lasted about maybe a couple hours or so, singing, dancing, having a good time. And that same day, in fact, it was after Marav that night, he was back hitting the books, working on the next Masechta. I saw firsthand from a great person how you can build on the past, understanding where you're coming from and what you must do, celebrate what you have accomplished, and then forget about it. Package it up. Maybe let's not say forget about it, but package it up. Put a bow on it. Put it away. Put it on the side. So it's important that we strike this balance of the Terumas Hadeshen, of the taking from the previous accomplishments and building on our past, while also from time to time and at the right moments of our life, scooping our accomplishments away, putting them in storage, moving on, forgetting about our previous accomplishments, because ultimately, sometimes we can hang our hat on them and not be as driven and not take on the day with that same first day of work passion. We now have a whole different understanding of why the day begins with removing a scoopful from the previous day, and why periodically every last granule of the ash must be removed to a makom tahar. We hopefully have clarified that we don't necessarily need to trailblaze new paths in our Judaism and Yiddishkeit. We just need to build and further the legacy and be another piece in the ultimate solution for being a light unto the nations and keeping up with Avram Avinu's legacy. And lastly, it's imperative that we strike this balance between the Terumas Hadeshen and the Hotza'as Hadeshen, the taking of the scoop full of ashes from the day before and removing every last bit of the ashes when it gets too built up, to be able to strike that perfect balance between building on the past, but yet starting each day fresh like it's your first day on the job, to do service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to daven and learn like a kindergartner at their first day of school, and to learn Torah like Ki'ilu Hayoim Nitna, like today it was given. For the great ones, they relish in their successes for but 5 seconds. But for each person, dwell on your success, enjoy it, celebrate it, and then move on and begin your next large undertaking to accomplish great things. This should be your mindset every single morning when you wake up, that it should be your first day on the job of a career that is thousands of years old.